Hello and welcome to Living is Giving. My name is Mark Caron.
And I'm Joanne Crobot.
And we're really excited to be here today to share with you our upcoming event on May 29th, the Living is Giving Philanthropic Summit. It's a big word sometimes, but it's always a pleasure to do something a little bit different. And Joanne and I really believe in the power of contribution and growth and the impact that it can have in the world. So I'm going to pass it over to Joanne to introduce our guests we're very excited to have with us today.
Great. Thank you, Mark. I'm so excited to say that we have Dr. John Gray, who is the author of the most well-known and trusted relationship book of all time, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So, John, so excited to have you here because you've got such great information for men and women, how they can get along and how they can have better relationships and a better life.
Well, I'm so happy to be with you. And I've written Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus almost 30 years. 30 years ago, I wrote that book. I taught it for another 10 years before I wrote that book. It's been quite a journey. It's still bestseller around the world. It's amazing. But I have another updated version of it in my book, Beyond Mars and Venus. And that book particularly can help us understand how men and women have changed so much over the years, because as women have become more independent, more self-reliant, more economically successful, it changes the dynamic quite a bit in a relationship. When you're a man and a woman depends upon you for finances, if you have the good fortune of a good job and you make enough money to buy a house and provide for your family, you're a hero. And now you're just a co-owner. And if you're messy, it's like another child around the house. Why do I want to do that? Many women today kind of go, why don't we want to get married? Because they don't realize that as you become more independent, it's more challenging to come back to the more happy, fulfilled, appreciative partner, because you don't depend on your partner so much. But actually, what I point out in my work is that as women become more independent, they need a man even more. They don't really need him, but they need what he can give her. And what he can give her is more attention, affection, companionship, romance, validation, safety, security, for your emotional safety. See, before we would provide the physical safety. Now we're more enlightened beings. And that is, it takes it to another level. And if you look at what I've done in my new book is sort of identified within every man and every woman, we all have a male and female side. And that's really interesting. So a lot of people are confused, are they a man or a woman? Because that you have access to masculine energy or feminine energy. And that's because of the shift in consciousness. There is a consciousness that allows us to self-reflect in a spiritual way. Now, this is very interesting because on a spiritual level, I have a very spiritual background. I was a monk for 9 years and still am in certain ways. But to know your spirit is to know the part of you which is eternal. It doesn't have a sex. It's both masculine and feminine. It's both masculine and feminine. So when you connect more with your spirit, you feel access to both sides. But our job here is to bring spirit into the physical incarnation. And so if you have a woman's body, you have to respect women's hormones. And if you have a man's body, you have to respect male hormones. So what we might call masculine qualities like independence, analysis, selflessness, these qualities, logic, these are qualities that women have just as much as men, but they're masculine qualities and they produce masculine hormones in both men and women. And men need at least, this is universal, men need at least 10 to 30 times more testosterone than a woman. Otherwise, our heart is closed. Otherwise, we're stressed. And for women, they need 10 times more estrogen than a man. And there's certain feminine qualities that go with estrogen, like pleasure, joy, relaxation, happiness, nurturing feelings, generosity, and kindness. These feelings is our female side. Now, I have all that I talked about, male and female. But if I have too much estrogen, then my testosterone goes low. And then that positive estrogen feeling of love turns into anger. So we now have the biological research showing that when a man is angry, his testosterone is actually down and his estrogen is up. his female qualities are increasing. And I like to say that for the men listening, because sometimes men associate anger with masculinity. Actually, you're weakening yourself. You're falling into the trap of so many men who don't understand what masculinity is. And so what you see today is men more on their female side, producing more female energy than they should be. They need to be producing more masculine energy. We're sort of emasculating men in our culture. We're diminishing masculine qualities like assertiveness and aggression. Well, aggression can be positive or negative. Ambition. These are all things that are seen as negatives, as opposed to, what are you talking about? This is hero stuff. This is great stuff. So we're pushing down the masculine, which is a mistake. We need to learn how to build up the masculine, and the masculine actually becomes then more loving. This is all biological. I can prove it all biologically, which I just love to do, because many people say, oh, we're not really that different. And I go, my gosh, we're totally different. Women make babies. Are you kidding? There's a whole nother hormonal setup, so that her hormones are changing all the time. For the first 5 days after her period, her testosterone and estrogen levels are rising. Then her estrogen level shoots up towards ovulation. Then her estrogen goes down and her progesterone goes up. And then her estrogen goes up, and if it goes too high, then she has PMS. All kinds of things. Women's hormones are all over the place. That's why I wrote this book, so men could understand women, and women can understand themselves, what they need. You know, sometimes I get feminists who say, you don't know what I need. You're a man. I said, I'm a doctor. And if you're sick, it's because you don't know what you need. I'll tell you what you need. How can you tell me what I need? I said, because you're sick. And why do I say you're sick? Because you're not able to feel happy. If you can't feel happy and feel attracted to men, something's wrong with you. Something's wrong. We need to learn to love each other. The female side of us, the estrogen side of us, has massive love for men. Whether you are heterosexual or gay, doesn't matter. We love men. And the masculine side of me loves women, period. I respect women. I honor women. And this is what's coming up. The potential to have more love in our lives is there primarily because we do have access to the male and female sides inside of us, but the potential for confusion is enormous.
I can relate to that.
And, I love the theme, living as giving, and a simple point. And I even fall into this some days. If I don't work, sometimes if I take a vacation for too long, I get a little depressed. I take my wife and my daughters, we all go to Hawaii. And I say 7 days is my limit. I cannot stop. I can't go without working for 7 days. Otherwise I become depressed. Now what that is biologically is if I'm not being challenged and solving problems, my testosterone levels will drop. Every depressed man has got low testosterone. I need to be out there saving the world. Everybody's got their mission and purpose. And I say to men who are depressed, and there's so many men who are, there's another great speaker out on the circuit, which I'm really impressed with in certain ways. That's Jordan Peterson. He's teaching young men how to have meaning and purpose in your life. And the difference between Jordan and I, because he also talks about, how nonsense this is to think that men and women are the same. But he really clears the table when it comes to men and say, you're being diminished by this society. And that's what the problem is. We're not getting the recognition that we deserve, just as women have not gotten the respect that they deserve. Women don't get the respect they deserve, but men don't get the appreciation they deserve. And why do I make that discernment between respect and appreciation? Because when you appreciate what somebody does for you, you're basically, your testosterone goes up. And in terms of your whole mission here is philanthropic activity. When a man can do something or give something and he sees he makes a difference, what happens is his testosterone goes up. And that's very, very significant, because if your life is just about making money and you don't really see that you're serving society, that you're helping other people with that money, you will be depressed as a man. It's very, very important that men feel that they're helping others. Helping is the purpose of our life. So when I have a depressed guy, I say, what are you doing to help others? And they're not. You need to go out and do something to help other people. But there's a thing about philanthropy, which is give money, but don't don't like seek acknowledgement of it, keep it private or whatever. And I'm not in that camp. I am in that camp in that I do give money away, and I often do it privately just because I don't want everybody asking me for money. That's why I do it. So I don't make it public. But the reality is, if a man gives, part of the loop for testosterone is he needs to see that it helped and made a difference. And acknowledgement and awards and recognition, these things are really, really important for the male side of us. Now, remember, women have a male side too. Now, the flip side of this is for women, loving is giving. Women are big givers, but often not good receivers. That's a big challenge for women. Almost every woman I've ever counseled over 50 years who was not happy in her relationship would almost say the same thing. I give, but I don't get back. And ironically, she's blaming her partner for giving, for not giving back when she's the lousy receiver. See, you can't just blame him because you don't know how to receive. But what do you mean? He's not giving to me because you don't know how to receive. Receiving is appreciating. To appreciate is to receive. And if you give more than you appreciate, then you're giving to get. And for women, it's dangerous to go into the world of giving to get. But what's nourishing to the female spirit is giving not to get. And that's why philanthropy, women generally, if you kind of look at a perfect world when it worked, the man would make money, support his family. And if there was extra money, the wife would then give of herself, give money or time or energy, but not need anything in return. It's that being able to give without expecting something in return is very nourishing to the female spirit. It's because the opposite is such that what's not nourishing to her spirit is giving to get. If we look at, my instructions for women in relationships, that they're not very good receivers, and I'm not blaming them. Kind of cause sometimes I come across as too tough. Nobody's taught women how to receive. That's why I've written whole books on how to receive, the art of feeling gratitude, appreciation, the art of asking for help in such a way that somebody wants to help you instead of asking for help in a way that makes a person not want to help you. That's the difference between asking and complaining. Nobody wants to give to somebody who complains, be gone. And you hear complaints over and over. It's like nobody's taught women how to ask for more. And so they're sort of left with this monkey conditioning of just complaining and making noises and using emotions to manipulate others to get what you want. Yeah, see, people don't realize that's what emotions are. All negative emotions are manipulations to get people to change. For example, anger. Angry men, like gorillas, angry monkeys to intimidate you. If you don't change, I'll hurt you. Anger is so awful. And then there's sadness and hurt. Oh, poor me, elicits sympathy and compassion for others who will give more to you, and they won't repeat their mistakes if you show and you cry. Then there's the others, which are fear. Oh, I'm afraid other people will do things for you. You don't have to do it yourself, and you'll get help that way. I'm afraid I can't do it myself. And then guilt. Oh, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. We'll get people to say, okay, I forgive you. You're redeemed. I see you have enough remorse. You have to suffer enough. If you suffer enough, then I'll love you again. This is all monkey conditioning. Now, as I say all that, and it's absolutely true what I just said, emotions manipulate. Negative emotions are there to manipulate. Having said all that, I'm totally into validating your emotions. You see, a child doesn't have a logical brain, and so that they're basically powerless. So and they don't have communication skills. So let's just go all the way back beyond childhood to monkeyhood. If I'm a monkey and I can't communicate, see, I haven't developed that brain where I can use language to communicate effectively in a way that somebody will hear me. Complaining is not communicating in a way someone will hear you, by the way. But go back all the way to childhood. We don't have a clue when it comes to communication. We're like little monkeys. We don't have the words. So if you're a monkey and you can't communicate and somebody steps on your foot, what do? You have no words. So you go, ow. And then they step on your foot again because they don't know how to communicate very well either. So they'll step on your foot again. You go, ow, ow. And then they do it again. Ow, ow, ow. And now you're escalating negative emotions. Why? To get what you want. But when did escalating a negative emotion ever get you what you want? It doesn't. It builds mistrust. It destroys relationships. So all these fancy communication skills, but come down to the basic. Stop yelling. Stop complaining. There's actually MRI scans of people who complaining, chronic complainers. They call them automatic negative thoughts. They only see negativity, and they complain about it. If you complain about it, a part of your brain lights up as if you're taking cocaine. You're addicted to complaining. This is a real sad thing. So how do you break any addiction? Stop. Stop. Don't let it come out. But you can't just say no to that childlike part of you. You have to listen to it. And the reason we get in these negative loops is because nobody ever listened to those feelings and validated them. And they can't validate them because most of them are completely irrational. You see, they're just negative. They're not loving. How can you validate negativity other than to go, oh, this is like a little child throwing a tantrum. Doesn't keep me from loving my child, but I teach emotional intelligence to my children, which is, okay, now, right now you're upset about this because of this, and you're angry, and also you're sad, you're disappointed, and you're afraid. Let me help you understand what you're afraid of. And most people have such little emotional intelligence that if I went up to almost any person who was angry and I said, I think right now you're really afraid. I'm not afraid, I'm angry. But you couldn't be angry unless you're also afraid. It doesn't exist. Negative emotions cannot exist separate. But what happens is we're so emotionally illiterate, we tend to just become one emotion and get stuck there. For a lot of women, get stuck in insecurity and doubt and fear. Why? Because they weren't allowed to embrace anger, because it's dangerous. Men become horrible if somebody gets angry with them. And yet women still do it, but nobody's taught them another way to ask for help. And so that's a dynamic. The art of asking for help is not taught. And why is it not taught? Because if you go through history, where communication skills were very limited in the past, what we had is a culture that taught men what to do to get a woman to love you. And it used to be, if you're a man, all you had to do was make money and provide for a woman, and she would love you. Things were much simpler then. If you had a bad job, she wouldn't love you and you'd become an alcoholic. Okay, so, and then everything goes down. But if you actually had a job that you lived in a political system that would allow men to work and get paid. And when I'm talking about political systems, it would be, and if you work harder, you make more money. And if you get more educated, you make even more money. So this whole idea of everybody getting the same nonsense, that's communism. It's crazy. I've been teaching in China for 10 years, and they all know they lived through communism, and they know this is disastrous. So you have half the country communist, and you have the other half, which are capitalists. And what we need is a society that has a good safety net, but also motivation. Because again, remember that the male side of us needs to feel that if I work harder, I'll get more. If I'm lazy, I get less. And that's the big mistake that women make in relationships, is often when men get a little lazy, women give more. So you rewarded him for being lazy. So what are you doing? You're training the monkey in him to have no energy. So it's like everything in relationships is backwards. Our relationship skills are kind of like monkeys, except that there used to be a culture that overrode that, which said that men, you do this. You've got your job description. You saw your father do it. You do what he did. Simple. And if you actually provided what a woman could not provide for herself or didn't want to do. See, this is what's, we look at the oppression of women, which definitely there's many ways women are oppressed and just as many ways men are oppressed. However, saying all that, if you go back far enough in time, we all got together. Not that I was there, but I can imagine it. And basically, we got the men and women together, and I'm the wise person in the village. And I said, we need to create a system here that works for everybody. So women are the source of life. So we're going to ask them, what do they want to do and what do they not want to do? And the women say, well, we don't want to do dirty, dangerous, and difficult jobs. We want to be safe and comfortable at home. We like cooking, making and eating and loving our children. So men, you go to the jungles, you do the dangerous stuff, you do the difficult stuff. And all the men said, okay, Men don't complain. They don't complain. You know, the modern men are all emotional. They're like complaining too. But in those days, it was like, hey, if that works, that works. All we care about as men is if I give of myself, will somebody love me? And if women understood the power of their love, because they're embodiments of love, it's there, it's in your genes, you've got more estrogen, and estrogen is love. If you learned how to communicate that in a way to a man that actually brought out the best, and it will bring out the best of him, you can get whatever you want from a man. But women don't know how to do that. And because you don't know how to do it, you do it the wrong way, and you become exhausted and tired, giving and giving and giving what you think will work when it doesn't work, because what you're giving doesn't work. The greatest gift you can give to a man is the opportunity to do something for you and make you smile. That's it.
Mm.
And how to do that. So it's all about learning to give and receive. But philanthropy is so, so wonderful, particularly for women. I think it's a big deal that women don't get to do today. Because as I mentioned, the hormones associated with giving without expecting anything in return is non-testosterone. See, testosterone, too much testosterone in women lowers their estrogen. See, they're kind of like opposite forces, complementary forces. And so today women are so much on their male side, on the independent side. What helps them to come back to their female side is activity called nurturing. Nurturing is giving to others without expecting anything in return. And that's so, so significant. And for a man to give, he needs to feel that I have extra. He needs to first feel responsible for himself. Then he can take it on for his wife and children. Then to go beyond that is to be greater. The more you give, the more you will have. But for women, the more you give, you will get less and less unless you're giving back. Giving back is the secret. It's literally, think about the sun versus the moon. These are more traditional symbols of masculinity and femininity. The sun radiates, okay? This is me going to work and working hard to support my family and all that, shining out. It's independent, not dependent on anything. The moon is dependent on the sun, and it reflects it back. So if a woman can feel, I need something from this man, or he's provided something for me, then she can fill up. Then she will reflect back, and she gives not to get, but she gives as the result of having received. And so what you get is kind of a paradoxical phenomena, which is that when women don't receive, they give more. Rather than, if you're not receiving from your partner, don't make them wrong, because that day they have nothing to give. So give more to yourself, give more to your children, give more to what makes you happy. And never, if you want to be a modern woman capable of having a soulmate relationship where you're independent and dependent at the same time, both your male and female side, you have to give up this old notion, like an adolescent girl fantasizing romance, that a man is the source of my happiness. No, you are the source of your happiness. He can make you happier, but you have to first be happy. And the same thing for me as a man. I can't look to a woman to make me happy. Otherwise, I'll be this needy, irritable, grumpy guy. I need to be dependent on my work and my activities, on my helping other people. That makes me happy. Helping people makes us happy. And then I look to my wife, providing more for her than I give to anybody else, and I'm happier. So that's the dynamic of a monogamous relationship. You just can't beat it. To bond in a monogamous relationship. And my philosophy is, my wife says, John, you're just so generous. It's amazing. And I say, honey, I'm actually extremely selfish. If I have $1 million, I can give $1 to 1 million people and have a very little effect. But I can give you $1 million and I get all that in return. So this is when you make the commitment to a relationship, you get the returns. And that's what we have to do. But we have to learn the skills if we want to be on this male and female side. We can go higher, but we can also go lower as a result if we don't get it right. And we're just learning all of this stuff on the planet right now. And fortunately, this knowledge is coming out of understanding the unique needs of women, the unique needs of man that you wouldn't think are so important. And suddenly you can now provide what your partner needs the most, and then they can give back to you. And what that often looks like in an intimate relationship for men is listen more to your wife. Doesn't mean do everything she says. You're not obedient to everything, but it means listen. That means when she's speaking, don't speak. It means when she's speaking, wait till she's done before you say anything. So how do you do that? Because men have to feel like they have to do something. Just say things like, well, help me understand that better. Well, what else?
It's better than me always trying to fix everything, right?
That's right. We got to take off the Mr. Fix-It hat and actually put on the wisdom hat, which is how do we give her what she needs? She's not a problem that needs to be fixed. She's a human being that needs to be heard. And she's a fragile human being. She's a tender human being that you don't always see because it's not safe, because we laugh at tender feelings sometimes. We make fun of them or we want to push them away. I was just watching one of those last night, those music shows, and these for little kids coming out and winning the prize. And almost all of them were nervous. And the coaches would say, oh, are you nervous? And they say, yeah, I'm nervous. And then they say, don't be nervous. This is the wrong direction. This is what we traditionally do, is push feelings down. Now we have a higher intelligence that can transform feelings. So what they could say instead is, are you nervous? Yeah, that's okay. I understand you're nervous. This is a big event. You've probably never done this before, have you? No, I haven't. It's all going to be okay. We're right here for you and we're rooting for you. Boom. That's what the person needs. They don't need somebody to say, don't be nervous, don't be afraid, don't be angry. You know, these are the mistakes we make because we're not emotionally literate. So again, it all comes to emotional literacy when it comes to giving. You have to understand where you're needed. And I think it would be massively helpful to everybody if they could find a charity and give to that, because we are bigger than ourselves, than our relationships, than our family. Then we extend ourselves out beyond the family, because the more you can embrace outwards, the more comes into your life. That's just, you know, it's a simple thing. We're all here as instruments of love and light. And the more opportunity to affect others, the more energy comes through you to give to others. And we can become so singled out just on our relationships, on what fills us up. And we don't realize you have to break that shell and expand out, particularly as we mature. That's very, very important. That frees us from this sort of self-centeredness that can keep us from giving more. Because life is a process, a journey of growing like a tree. A tree is growing, but when it stops growing, it's dying. So as far as love goes, the generosity of our heart, the giving, it goes out. If it doesn't go out further and further, it starts dying. So sometimes one of the best things you can do, and I remember Tony talking about how he goes out and feeds people on Thanksgiving and gives them the turkeys and everything. I heard that story. So I had a woman that was in my office at the time. She's depressed. I said, you know, you need to go out and give some turkeys away and your depression will go away. And she said, oh, that's nonsense. I said, no, it's not. You need to get out of yourself and go somewhere where you're needed. There's some people that just a turkey will change their life. And so when you experience in that moment, I'm providing something that actually helps people, your mission on this planet is fulfilled. And then you got to bring another turkey. But ultimately, we all need meaning and purpose. And that meaning and purpose comes from helping others. And the more people we can help, the more expanded we become, the more our resources, our own personal resources increase.
That's amazing. That's what we do with Basket Brigade Canada. I started that in '93 when I heard Tony's story, and it's changed my life. Every Thanksgiving we deliver food, and now it's an official charity, and it's one of the sponsored charities we have here at the event coming up May 29th. So thank you for mentioning that. That's such a beautiful thing.
Well, you know, even as I'm talking, there's all kinds of charity. People don't have to have a lot of money to do charity. They can take on projects and whatever. It can show us money. It can show us other ways. But I think even to get a taste into it, sometimes giving to a charity where you get even a little money, just the experience of giving and not getting anything back is so liberating. It also affirms that I am abundant.
Yeah, but there's enough to go around, right?
There's enough to go around. I'm abundant. You know, I have extra.
I love that belief. That's wonderful. You know what we do at Basket Brigade Canada too is some of our recipient families, which will be actually at the event May 29th, they actually want to give back too. So I invite them to come and help pack the food and sort the food and even deliver the food. And that makes them feel so worthy, and they really have a purpose. And it's exactly what you're saying. I want the whole world to hear what you're saying because it touched my heart so much. It's everything you say is so true, and it makes such sense nowadays.
Yes, it does. You know, when I was a younger guy, I used to be a bit depressed, and I go kind of like, what's my mission? What's my purpose? You know, it's feeling no value. You know, I want to do something of value. What could it be? And then I realized it's just helping. If you go out and start helping people, that question doesn't even come up. What's my mission? What's my purpose? It's no longer a big deal if you're helping. And, you know, we all go through it. It's everybody's, you know, challenge here on this planet is to keep helping. And then there's a phenomenon that happens is that when we give of ourselves and it doesn't come back, then often we feel hurt, we feel resentful. And everybody should know that's fake news. That's you messing up your life, you know. And people will say, I resent the fact that you didn't give back to me. I've done so much more for you and you did not. You're even in a fact now that I cannot be happy unless you change. You know, I'm confirming my feet are grounded in cement that I'm going to suffer the rest of my life. You know, back in the 90s, I used to be the coach for Oprah. And one of the things Oprah said, which I really enjoyed, she says, yeah, holding on to resentment is like giving someone free rent in your brain to make you suffer.
And so true.
You know, and the release from that is personal responsibility, is to realize that all our suffering, we create ourselves. You know, we can't control what happens in the outer world, but we can look at within how we can let go of our own negativity through forgiveness, through understanding. But when it comes to that resentment stuff, usually the understanding that can help us is the recognition I'm giving to get rather than freely giving. That should be your gift. And it's hard to freely give if you're not giving to yourself. So that's another thing is you have to fill up so that you're overflowing. But you could be giving to yourself and suddenly it doesn't feel, your life feels bored or flat or something, because when you're giving to yourself and you were empty, it felt good to fill up. But once you fill up on giving to yourself, you can't go even higher. What happens is you become aware of, I call them love tanks, other love tanks that you haven't been filling up. And generosity, selfless giving to your community is one of those love tanks that we all need. We need to love ourselves, love a special person, love our children, love nature, love God, have friends, have joy in our lives, love knowledge, be learner. These are all like little love tanks. But one of those love tanks is serving your community. And that's the selfless work that we can do. And that's different from work. Work is very important too, but then there's also selfless work, which is a blessing. And maybe one of the highest levels of personal achievement is to feel free in that state.
Beautiful. Well, and, you know, one thing I just wanted to thank you for sharing is, you know, that, you know, when you give beyond yourself, you know, if you're depressed to, you know, find purpose and give back or what have you. And I know I lived with that for many years. My mother struggled with depression. Yet anytime she'd get a phone call to go help someone, it was amazing to see how she'd forget everything. And when she couldn't move off the sofa one day, how she could go move mountains the next.
Yeah.
Because it was beyond herself. And to witness that was just one of those things that really stuck with me as well. So thank you for explaining how that kind of works.
Yeah. And also, you know, I wrote a book on ADD. For some people, that's a symptom of ADD, which is really a brain injury. Could be due to something that happened at birth. Could be due to toxicity, a lot of different causes of ADD. But a lot of people, when they procrastinate, what happens is they put off doing anything. They wait until it's an emergency and it produces enough dopamine to say, okay, now I'm going to get up and do something. And for her, the dopamine hit that she was getting was somebody needs me. And that produces dopamine. You know, it's kind of like there's a fire and then there's dopamine gets produced. Everybody runs, or you want to become a hero, whatever. So one thing is we can see that clearly. We can overcome that by helping. And sometimes what we need to do is help ourselves by recognition that we may have an ADD condition. Doesn't mean you take a drug for that. I'm personally completely against all drugs particularly for ADD, when there's so many natural solutions. So I wrote a whole book called Staying Focused in the Hyper World, uh, healing ADD, memory, and brain function. So that's something that people who, if they have that condition, they can read that book and learn from it. There's so many good natural things we can do. Love is the answer, learning to love ourselves, but also good food, good nutrition sometimes makes a world of difference. But we don't want to leave out, the whole idea of, like life has a stable table, has 4 legs. You've got to self-love, you've got to love others, but you got to love others without expecting anything in return. That's such an important, and then love your body. So you've got to have all those legs going. Otherwise the table will fall over.
Absolutely. Well, I also like what you said about community and the importance of that. And I think today more than ever, I think community is so important with this social distancing, physical distancing, everybody locking down, and, the fear that's kind of been going around, how important it is to support our community, and even just to say hello to someone on the street or whatever that might be. Because I know I had an experience. I was just at a store one time, and I spoke with an older gentleman who lived by himself, and he was just happy to get out of the house and have a conversation with some people.
Yeah, I can remember first time after, I think, a year, because we could, the restaurants would let us eat at the restaurants outdoors, and it was a full moon out, and I was eating outdoors, and there was people. It just felt without masks on. That's really, in my opinion, stupid. They're now starting to show the research that disproves it. In a state of fear, people believe ridiculous things, but I think we're getting beyond that now, which is really great. But just to be in that environment where people were all sharing and talking, everybody was so excited. And, divorce levels dramatically went up during the lockdown because we're spending too much time together. We need to breathe, in breath, out breath. We need time together, time apart. Otherwise we get too needy with each other and then dissatisfied. So, but now that people are getting out, the amount of people wanting to get married is dramatically increasing. So I'm out of this relationship, but I'm starting another one. That's I think the value of relationships, loving relationships, is going to go up. But one of the misconceptions is that the relationships that went sour during COVID, people all say, well, maybe that was just magnifying problems that already existed. In my opinion, that had they had the right skills, those problems would have been solved. Doesn't mean you're with the wrong person. And most of the time you have the wrong skills, the wrong insight, or just too stressful an environment to handle that environment with the level of skill that you have. My children are married, and they all had great relationships during this time. They had more family time. There was more happiness than we've ever experienced during this time because they had good relationship skills. As one man put it, who I talked to, he was agreeing with me that you need your space and closeness. And he said, oh yeah, the only time our whole family gets together is at lunch and dinner. Otherwise, everybody's got their own room and you're not allowed to talk to anybody.
That's a good rule.
Well, too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing,
Well, and like you say, where people, you go into a situation like this in a great relationship, and I think the extra time does magnify that. Yet that extra time, if you don't, magnifies the challenges. And if you don't have a mindset of growth and seeking to understand and find out how, and I love you, and how are we going to make this work, then we continue to do what we normally would do, which would be to blame and shame and fight and argue and be right, or whatever that might be, creating separation, right?
Right. And at the same time, too much time together is not a good thing for most people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you see, love is produces so many brain chemicals that are addiction brain chemicals. Okay, dopamine is delicious, and particularly if you have a good sex life. I mean, it's delicious. So what happens is your dopamine levels go too high, then it desensitizes dopamine receptor sites so that your partner doesn't stimulate dopamine in you more. And then you think, what's wrong? As opposed to if you went and did something else to stimulate your dopamine, those receptor sites would come back up in response to your partner. So that's the scientific version of why you really need to have time together and time apart. Just like, you live in your house. I've been in my house 30 years now. It's important for me to go to other places. And then I come back and my house is more beautiful. I was just visiting some friends in another part of town and looking at their house, and it was newly constructed. And I'm going, wow, this is like amazing house. This is really good. But when I came back to my house, it was better.
Oh,
Contrast.
The contrast. That's right. We all need contrast.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Vacations are good. Getting out is good. And one of the things I did during COVID, which was good as well, which was making sure that I got out every day, because you could drive your car. So I just went driving my car. It's kind of like a teenager. I'm going to go for a drive today, just to get out of this house. We need to have our time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And driving your
absolutely.
car is such a great therapy. I love that too. I think you can see things that you've never seen before and just daydream, and such a great escape.
You can play music. And if you love cars, it's even different. I actually have a really great car. and I have 2 convertibles, and the sound systems are outrageous. So I just get on if it's a beautiful day, I put on the convertible and I'm out for a drive. It's quite fun.
Nice.
In California, right?
Yes. Good. The
Well,
weather to be here. There's a lot of problems with California, but it does have good weather.
That's right. I love California for that. Yeah, it's beautiful there. All of California is beautiful.
Beautiful place. Yeah.
Love it. One of my
Absolutely.
favorites. That's
So-
great.
Joanne, you got any questions for John?
No, I'm just so full of what you said.
I know, I'm just like taking it
absorbing
all in.
I love it. Thank you so much. Every time I hear you speak, it just comes into me like it just makes sense. And it's like, you know what I'm thinking, which I love about your books.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's always there. So thank
Well,
you. So looking forward to together. Hopefully we'll be doing those soon. So we'll have to keep in touch about that too. But we're so happy to see you on May 29th, and you'll be one of our great speakers. And we're just so looking forward to the results and the happiness we're going to share with everyone.
Oh, that's great. I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much.
And thank you for just sharing what you shared with our viewers today, because I think it's really timely at this time. And, the opportunity and how we can give just in our relationships in a way that can make a difference for ourselves, because once we're full in our relationships, and I know, when my relationships are awesome, life's awesome. And when they're not so awesome, well, it's case in point. And that's why I think it's just so imperative that people have tools and continue to learn and grow and seek to understand the differences of masculine and feminine and the energies, and to see our similarities. Because when I learned this a number of years ago, and it was actually in the Tony world through your work in my growth, probably just over 20 years ago, and it made such a difference. And what I'm seeing here in our conscious community here in Vancouver, is the growth as people looking at the masculine and the feminine start treating each other differently and honoring those differences.
That's the thing. It's an honoring thing. It's not a neglecting thing.
Yeah,
because people
absolutely.
are different, and honoring our differences is a gift of love.
Yeah. Oh, honoring feels so good. So we honor you for being here. Thank you so much. A big hugs to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. It's always a pleasure to hear you share and to connect with your work. And thank you again so much for being part of this event coming up.
I'm looking forward to it. You have a lovely day.
Thank you. Take care.